Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so it sounds like you can hear me. Let me know if you can't. Okay, so here were the images that I got. Let me go back and see what else. Yeah, they were all pretty much, here's a couple more. These were just definitely not gonna work, so I won't even, well, I mean, I'll show them to you, but the composition wasn't good. I knew I wanted to be able to focus clearly on these little baby foods that she likes. So like in this image, okay, actually I will go through these because this is another way to talk about visual weight. Okay, so in this case, there's way too much visual weight over here. It's brighter. I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing like numbers and signs and stuff, and there's really no balance to this. This feels, I have leading lines that are coming over here to this area, but yet my eye's drawn over here, and then she's kind of like my third place I'm looking, so it's not working too well for me. So we're gonna get rid of that one. Same thing here, there's sort of a disconnect. I started to realize that I don't want anything here. I don't wanna see that because the lines are leading out of the frame. And even though it's framing it, there's just too much other stuff. Sometimes something will work well as a frame, but then it also creates a leading line. And so that's redirecting your vision to someplace else. So that one had to go. Same kind of thing here. I was sort of repositioning myself to where I wasn't having that area of these things being framed, which, just like we were talking in this past week, is that being a compositional technique. The reason framing is a compositional technique is because it makes you look at something. And if I don't want you to look at that, then, you know, it's not really gonna work. And it wouldn't be so bad if this weren't leading my eye here. But in this case, I've got like 3 places that are all competing for my attention. So that's why I ended up going with these, you know, roughly compositions. This is kind of like a micro composition because once I was finding what I wanted in my background and sort of setting that up, I had to wait for Cora to give me some kind of, I needed her to move in such a way that it helped me sort of make this connection. The reason that I chose the one that I did, even though her face, she's looking right at me, there was something kind of funny to me about it. And the reason it did work, though, I felt was because she's holding this puff and she's about to eat it. And that kind of is mirroring this idea of baby food, and she's eating something. And none of the other images she was clearly eating. This one's okay, but the composition felt kind of sloppy. I liked the food being closer to her mouth. But this ended up being kind of the strongest one. Generally, I would not want her eyes looking right out at me, but for some reason, I think that it worked out okay for me. It's not the best composition ever, and I think it would probably be stronger. It might be stronger if she was just looking at her food or something. The other thing about this that makes it not quite so bad, I guess, is that what's behind her is not another person's face. And I think that can sometimes be, when it's problematic, is like there's somebody back here and they're looking at you, which is a very strong pull for you to look back at them. But then you have this person looking at you, which is making you want to look at them, but you can't because they're out of focus. So if the subject matter that's in the background isn't very close in subject matter to the thing that's in the foreground, I think then it's not quite as bad. But ideally, yeah, I think this would be better had she not been looking at me. But sometimes it's just picking the best one out of a series that helps get your point across. And you're not going to get it perfect every time, including me. I mean, definitely, I don't get it right all the time. It just becomes a matter of knowing. I think a lot of the trick is just knowing if you did have one where she wasn't looking at you, being able to say that's the stronger image. That's half the battle right there, is just knowing how to pick your images. Because you're not going to get everything to line up perfectly every time, maybe not even most of the time. But if you know what makes one image stronger than another, you're able to make a good judgment when you're culling your images and putting them together. So I'm hoping that was helpful. Okay, let's see here. Where do you want, yeah, okay, so we talked about this. Okay, someone had asked you, how many images do you take? How many do you shoot? How many do you throw away? You can see from these, I mean, you can see in my Lightroom catalog, there's a lot of pictures, and I miss a lot of stuff, a ton of stuff. Here's an example of microcomposition. Oh, this is well, even from the tutorial on microcomposition, there are 60 images, if that gives you an idea, and I think I kept like 2 of them. So, you know, 2 out of 60, 1 out of 30, that's about the rate. Let's see. Okay. I'm not entirely sure you can hear me, but I'm going to keep going. All right. Because I'm not seeing any movement on the screen over here. I'm hoping this is working. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so the last thing, I think the last real thing that I wanted to address was emotional detachment in your images. And it was a question somebody had. It's a question somebody had about, I think it was Heather. Heather said, oh, see, I don't think this is working. Let's see.
Look at all options.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm going to keep going then. Okay, you can hear me. All right, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is emotional detachment from your images. And I think I'll switch over to the forum so that I can pull up that. Let's see. Desktop. Let's pull this up. Okay. So I had shared a link in, let's see. I had shared a link in the Cool Links thread on week 1 talking about emotional detachment from your images. And I'll just pull it up now. Let's see. Cool Links. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. All right. Emotional distance from your work. It's this article right here. So I highly recommend that you give it a read. It's really an interesting thing. And I know Heather was talking about, is it really such a good idea to get emotionally detached from your personal work? And her question, I'll actually find it, so I make sure that I'm reading it correctly and remembering it correctly. So regarding separating our emotions when we edit, I do change my mind on what a favorite is. She's saying, but do we want to be emotionally detached as documentary photos of our own family? I could never see myself waiting months to edit, but I see the value of coming back and evaluating my work later if it's for a specific gallery outside my family. Okay. So the idea behind this is not that you become detached from your work. as a whole. And it's not that you become emotionally detached from what's happening when it's happening, but it's this idea that when you're photographing something, you're experiencing it, and you are you have an emotional connection to it as it happens. And sometimes you can be so wrapped up in the emotion of the actual activity as it's happening that it's hard to evaluate your work objectively. So, for example, I'm just going to bring it right back to Lightroom because it's a little easier for me to talk about this with pictures. Okay, so let's say that I'm looking at some photos. Where's some photos I took? How about Amish Town? Okay, here's a good example. I remember how I felt when I took this picture. And I remember how cute they were in front of this house, and how I had this big idea that I could line them right up with the house and it would be so great. But you know, this image just didn't work out that well. And when I first took it and I first uploaded it, I really wanted it to work. And I had a really hard time kind of coming to terms with the fact that it really wasn't working. There was something about it. I find these areas a little bit distracting. The girls, I wish I was a little bit lower. They're sharing too much of a focal plane with this house. I don't have much depth in this image. But there was a feeling that I got when I was taking it, a mental image, an idea of what I wanted to convey. And when I first was looking at this, I was still feeling that emotional connection to how I felt when I was actually making the image. And that can sometimes be confused with a good image. So have you ever gotten, like, uploaded some pictures and you really love certain ones, and then you come back to them like a month or two later and you're like, these aren't even good, you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something about it you liked if it's your own family or whatever, but you really can be more critical a month or two down the road. And so I'm not saying you would realistically not edit your photos or look at them for several months, but I think there is some value to not necessarily maybe sharing them all right away. Or, you know, we can sometimes beat ourselves up because we don't make our photo books on time, and you know, we get behind with our personal editing. But I think it can kind of be a good idea, because just photographically speaking, as far as being a strong documentary image, this just isn't. But when I took it, I really wanted it to be, and I really had an idea in my head that it was better than it is, and it's actually not that good. I was recently reading that Eric Penn says he develops film a year later because he wants the emotional distance to be able to evaluate his images better. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I think, like, with digital photography, I think we're all shooting digital in this class, and some of you might shoot film as well, but I think that's one of the reasons people, you know, they kind of like love film so much, is that when you get it back, there is that distance. It's almost this surprise that you've sort of forgotten how it felt to be there, and you have forgotten the actual, some of the details aren't as fresh in your mind of what just was taking place. So when you look at your images a few months, or even, like you're saying, Cheryl, a year down the road, you don't have any bias. There's no emotional bias in your images. So it's definitely not about losing an emotional connection to your imagery, but it's just about, I guess the whole point of it is to be able to look at it more objectively by evaluating your work when there's a little bit of distance between experiencing it and then looking at the photographic evidence of it. So I'm hoping that sort of answer your question, Heather. So that's kind of, I think that I touched on all the big stuff that people were having questions on, and I feel like I'm kind of rambling, and this may have been a little bit difficult to watch because I had to keep stopping, but I'd like to do this maybe again if I can get this to run smoothly. I'm gonna minimize Lightroom and try to switch back to the screen. Okay. Can you guys, I think you guys can probably see my face now, maybe. It might be fun if we could just chat, like type, kind of a live texting. Let's see. I'm gonna see if you can see me typing. Yay, Nicole. Okay, awesome. It feels so weird, you know, it's like, even though you guys are participating, it's not that you're not participating, but I feel so alone in this dark room and just like, I don't know if this is super choppy or super weird, but it's the first time I've done it, and hopefully it'll be run a little more smoothly next time. And supposedly this is going to save directly to YouTube. And then what I think I'll do is try to download it and then put it on Vimeo so that you guys can have all your videos in one place. Found this very helpful if you're looking for feedback. Awesome, Kim. Do you guys have any questions you can think of right now? Yay. I feel like a huge ass. I do. I feel so weird, but I'm trying to like pretend I don't, like whatever, no big deal. But I really definitely do. Definitely feel weird. And I have like covered my face with another window because I just can't talk and see myself at the same time. Yeah, definitely feel like, you know, everybody shows their best work, Nicole, and it's like, I mean, all of us want to show what we're proud of or what we connect to, but there's so many. I mean, I don't care how professional you are, or, you know, if you're CM Pro or some other pro or whatever, you have like total loserville images. You just do. And if you don't, then that means you're shooting so safe. That means that you're probably setting everything up and that you're waiting for perfect light and you're not taking a risk. And that's really not fun at all. So it's like, you know what, there's huge memory cards for a reason. You know, yeah, not every photo is going to be a keeper. I think the important thing is to know what you're doing and why. And I think when it becomes a problem that you have so many images is when you have no direction, you have no intention, you don't know what your subject is, you don't know what you're trying to say about it. So you're in this frantic, like, I'm just going to shoot from every possible angle and then hope something was okay. I might take like 50 pictures of my daughters in a shopping cart, but I know I have in my mind like an idea of what I want to say. So I don't care if I have to take 100. If I get that one shot that sort of communicates what it is I'm seeing in the world, then I don't mind. I don't care. I'll show you all my out of focus awful stuff. It doesn't bother me. So let's see. Oh, it's like an hour on the dot. So any last minute questions? And you can ask follow-up questions too. Like if you think of something and you want to add it, this sort of part of this conversation, just stick it in the Q&A thread for week 2. And I guess I'll go ahead and close out because I know there's a delay. So we could probably do this all night, me just sitting and waiting to see if anyone types. But I appreciate your participation so much. And this was so, so fun. So I will talk to you guys in the forum soon. Bye.